Today on Ag News, we've got Steve Boyles talking about low-cost calf production. Stay tuned, we'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Steve Boyles, we've got a topic on low-cost calf production. Is that correct? And is that a thing? Is that actually, can we raise calves low price? I mean, it seems like it's a fortune to raise animals anymore. So you obviously have some techniques to do this. So.
Yeah. And some of this is just common sense, but we all strive to produce a calf at the lowest cost possible and still get a return from that activity.
It seems like I always go in the hole every time I try to raise something like that. So, all right, what do we got? We've got some interesting things to talk about. So.
Yeah, and I want to give credit to Ed Rayburn and Phil Osborne of West Virginia University. I'm really using their data from some projects that they did, but I think it definitely applies to many of us here in Ohio cow-calf production. Well, what they did, they worked with 6 farms over 3 years, and they did an inventory of different things about the forage quality, the soils, and then the performance of the animals. And admittedly, they collected this information and evaluated how the farms did. Some of this, management tools, not too complex. Many of our viewers recognize this is for soil sampling. So gaining an importance or understanding of what we're growing these on that soil. So many times, I remember my father said that a good cattle producer is a good grass producer. So these are some of the tools to optimize that grass production. Then you can also look at the forages we raise. You can go to the Beef Team website, and we have some YouTubes on how to sample hay. So we know the soil, we know the forages, what do we have there to feed our animals. And this is kind of why we're doing this. Low cost is, there's the law of diminishing returns. We can do high cost. That's easy. But you don't get as much for that last dollar you spend. Versus that first dollar, you get more output from it than that last dollar. So looking at that lowest part of it. We would encourage producers to make use of certainly the conservation district programs. There could be some liming programs for soils, maybe equipment rental, or some cost share programs. So that's all a part of this low-cost production, to take advantage of those organizations that are there to help us. Well, what do we need to buy? They found, and I guess I would argue too, that many of our operations are high or potassium mined. The forage samples I look at on a regular basis, more than enough potassium in those samples. So do we need to put that out there? Let's ask that question. Can you grow your own protein supplement? I do a lot of diets supplementing protein supplements, but can we grow our own? Can that be lower cost? Let's at least ask the question. And how much grain do calves need with that hay? What is the hay quality? We don't want to over supplement. And can we substitute farm resources for actual cash products? So here's an example of a farm that they were looking at. I think some of the viewers might say, gee, that kind of looks like where I live. And so for soil sampling, the general recommendations for permanent pasture about 2 inches, permanent meadows about 2 inches, cropland perhaps down to 6 inches. If you're doing no-till corn, you may want to look at a couple different places for those samples. So it's not all in one. Think about what you're trying to do with that land. Also, the fertilizer recommendation, it's based on that individual sample, not just a standard 19-19-19. Look at the soil. Think about the pH. How much do you need to put out there? In general, a soil test, low, medium, and high. Are you buying fertilizer you don't need to? That's probably the one thing we don't want to do. So can we use our manure strategically as a fertilizer? We can, some of the critical values, say for hay, how much nitrogen do we need to apply? Or can we seed legumes and use that as our nitrogen source, and therefore maybe we don't have to put out fertilizer out there? The soil test may make some recommendations on phosphorus and potassium, on how much you actually need to put out there. So a soil test is a very important part of this. And I just mentioned, do we create our own protein supplement? This is going to minimize the amount of something in a bag that we have to provide to those animals. Also, now that's some of the science of testing. This isn't a visual evaluation. This is one of the ways a cattle nutritionist like myself evaluates forage quality. Yeah, I can have a lab analysis, but I'll go out and look at the manure.
Yeah.
The manure on the left is an indication of a high quality forage. It's relatively flat, like pancake batter. Those cows are eating some pretty good forage. Whereas look at that cow pie on the right. If it looks like a wedding cake, they're probably not getting very good quality. That's a lot of fiber, and that's not associated with hay quality. So even if you don't do soil testing, hey, walk around, look at your pastures, and look at cow pies. There can be something to be learned there about forage quality. So tall, firm stools are probably an indication of a lower quality. Flat brown stools, once again, if they're of a different color, a gray stool, you're probably not going to see that in cattle on pasture. That's more cattle with an upset stomach, acidosis in a feed yard. Okay. But who knows? But color can be important as well. Well, nutrient cycling, this is some data, once again, back to the Ed Rayburn and Phil Osborne study. They tried to figure out the value of the manure that's being put out there by the animals that you don't have to buy. And these are some of the numbers as far as those individual nutrients for the soil, what it's worth. So there is monetary value to that manure. And nutrient cycling with winter feeding, this is where somebody fed their cattle through the winter, and they generally recommend maybe you don't do it the same place every year. You move that manure around, that natural fertilizer, move it around if you can, and make that bank, that potassium bank, phosphorus bank, nitrogen bank. This is an area that was fed, they fed out, but they didn't go back to it 1 year after feeding there. And it's amazing how resilient many of our grasses are, like a fescue here in southern Ohio. If we move that nutrient bank around, that manure they left there is now being used to produce that hay. And this is aftermath growth 1 year after feeding. So a good stand of forage is taking advantage of that natural fertilizer that we provided during winter feeding. Forage testing, you can check with your local extension office if they've got some tools like this to drill bales. Once again, we have a YouTube video at the OSU Beef Team website on how to do that. And can we balance winter rations by mixing hays? Do you have some high quality hay, some low quality hay? Can you identify where the high quality hay is? There's no need to feed the highest quality hay to a cow in mid-gestation. Hang on to that high quality hay for near calving and after calving, and use the lower quality stuff earlier on. And you only supplement as needed. That may mean doing some forage testing on how much protein, how much energy, mineral supplementation is needed. So this is an example of their yearly cost savings that they felt that they got from their study. Soil testing, $2,700 was only needed versus, not just doing random fertilization. So they saved some money by doing soil testing and forage testing to reduce their actual purchase cost. And those are some of the estimates of what they got from doing this study. So think about that as a low-cost calf production.
Interesting. So, Steve, what does, I mean, on one of your slides there, we've got $3,000 that they reduced just for winter feeding time. And we're talking about the manure that the cows are leaving by. Do you do anything? Do you spread some lime? Should you spread some lime over that to help degrade it throughout the field? Is there, or do you just let the nature of rain and stuff take care of that?
Well, to change soil pH, you may well work with a soil test, and a lot of our soils here are probably acid, will need lime.
Okay.
And even then, you can work with an agronomist. You're probably not going to apply all the lime at once. You may do it once, spring and fall. And how much do you apply? That soil test is going to help you determine how much of that. But your other question, what about those other nutrients? Yeah, we're relying on the rain to spread it out a little bit.
Usually, yeah. So, okay, great. Another nice topic, quick information. Again, excuse me, go visit the Beef Team website, and also they've got a YouTube channel with some good information on how to, like you said, how to sample your hay and do some other things too. So until next time, we will see everybody later.